Sean, I'm going to start by asking you to tell us how you came to tell this particular story and what, when you set out, did you imagine the film that you ultimately made?
Actually, no. A lot of the way that I think I've made the last few films is that they're in a way found. We discover it as we're moving along. Even though we have a script, we really have no idea what it'll eventually be. In this case, I live about a half a mile from the corner of Santa Monica and Highland. My co-screenwriter and I, his name is Chris Brigosh, we are both cisgender white men from outside of that world, so we did not want to go into it imposing any sort of script or plot. We wanted to find people to work with and collaborators, and our main collaborator became Mya Taylor. And so we went in there basically just with the idea of we want to tell a story that takes place here in one night, and there's going to be sort of a convergence at the end of the film at donut time. That was basically it. That's all we had. And donut time is such a landmark for that location. So I knew, I told Darren at one point, I don't want to make this film unless you can lock down donut time. But anyway, so it really just was like it was a long process, a process in which there was collaboration, workshopping, and then when we actually got to shooting it, which was about 8 months after we met Mya and Kiki and the others, that we decided to, I always encourage improvisation on the set, so there's more of that. There's a constant evolution. So, yeah, I hope I answered that question right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mya, can you expand a little bit on how you became involved in the project and also how you actually, worked with Sean on what the film ultimately became?
Well, actually I'm a bit nervous because I'm in front of a totally different crowd of people, but I love you guys. Well, one day I was standing outside of the LGBT Center on Santa Monica and McCadden, and then there was this hot guy that just came up to me. Yeah, I thought he was so cute. So, of course I wasn't gonna blow him off. So, he came up to me and he said, he wanted to know more about the area. He was wanting to make a movie. Why are you staring at me? He said he wanted to make a movie, so he wanted to know more about the area, and I was able to give him the most information out of anybody that he talked to. And in the midst of that, he fell in love with my personality. And of course, I'm gorgeous. So, there's that element.
A question to both Darren and Sean about the making of, because there's been a lot written already about what is an extraordinary achievement to create a film that is as cinematic as this film is on modified iPhones. So was that a kind of practical choice? Was it something that you wanted to do because it gave you a sort of more nimble approach to the filmmaking? Could either of you talk about that?
Do you want me to start?
Just tell the truth. We weren't poor.
Well, yeah. I mean, it did fall into our budget range. I mean, we had talked about a couple of different cameras, and then this hot guy came up to me, and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. No, we had. We talked about a couple of different cameras, and then Sean, I believe you started doing some tests, or started looking at the Vimeo stuff.
There was a Vimeo channel that focused on short films and experiments done on the iPhone, and I was just very impressed. It was at the time that the iPhone just had come out with the iPhone 5S, so there was an upgrade in terms of the quality of the camera, and there were a couple of tools that helped convince me that we could elevate it to a cinematic level, and that was an anamorphic adapter that was created by this company called Moondog Labs, and so it allowed us to shoot in true scope. On top of that, there was an app called Filmic Pro, and that sort of it has a bunch of bells and whistles, and it allows you to get a higher quality compression rate on the video. So basically, those things I had to convince myself first, and then it was all about convincing Radium, my co-DP. But these guys were already on board, and actually my executive producers, Mark and Jay Duplass, they were very supportive of the idea from the very beginning. So.
One of the things that I really love about the film is this is a very different sense of Los Angeles, and part of that very much has to do with the fact that you are on the ground. We see so many films that are, car-driven stories in Los Angeles. And being a walker myself and having kind of walked between meetings there, which can be a really challenging thing in itself, I'm interested in, how much did that kind of idea of being on the ground influence the choice of medium too?
Well, I think it's also I think that I'm originally from New York. My whole team is still in New York. I came from that New York sensibility where I'm also a walker and a biker. So I try to keep doing that in Los Angeles. But I've also, going to Los Angeles, I realized that there was so much of LA that hasn't been shown in film and television. We're actually only see LA through, Venice Beach and Beverly Hills and the Hollywood sign, but there's so many more neighborhoods and communities and subcultures. And, a lot of people have to use public transportation or walk. I mean, we think of LA as a car culture, but it's actually, there's a whole other side in which, people who don't have the means still have to get around. And you're right, it hasn't been shown much, but I felt it was important to show.
Mya, can I also ask you a bit about, one of the things that is so significant and so beautiful and wonderful about this film is the language and the dialogue and how you and Kiki riff off each other and the friendship at the center of that as well. Could you talk a little bit about how you worked in terms of developing that kind of, exchange?
Yeah, when you mentioned the language, how we talk inside the film, I'm sure you guys are like, what does she mean when she's like, oh, bitch, what's your tea? That means like, what's your talk? Like, what's going on with you? Like, what's going on? So, yeah, like, I wanted a lot of the street language to actually be put into it because it is more realistic to that. And what else? What was your other question? I'm sorry. I'm so tired.
That's
like,
so
you guys
fine.
do not know. Like,
Me
I
too.
did 23 interviews today thanks to that guy over there. And then 2 photo shoots. I'm tired as hell. So, what was your question again?
Well, it was also about the idea of the friendship at the heart of this, because I think one of the things that is very moving about the film. It's got all this fabulous light touch, but there's also a very, very moving center about friendship. So I wondered whether that came from you or came from Sean.
As far as like friendship goes, we told the truth about the area pretty much. And when you're struggling, like when you're down and out, like the way these girls are or the people in that area, all you have is each other because, you don't have family. Obviously, because if you did, you wouldn't be out there. So all you have is each other and pretty much yourself. So there's very strong bonds between people there. And plus, Kiki and I are very, very good friends. Like if she gotta fight a bitch, then I'ma fight a bitch too. That's just how it is. That's my bitch. I love her. So
I think, Chris and I noticed this strong bond, this sisterhood, and I think that's what led us in that direction of focusing on that theme. When we started, we didn't know what genre of film this was going to be, but it was hanging out with Mya and Kiki. And I remember that first time I met the two of them. Mya introduced us to Kiki. Kiki sat down in front of us next to Mya, and right there and then I saw a dynamic duo, and their friendship was strong from that moment. I could sense it, and I think that that's what led us down that road.
We're very opposite. I'm the classy one, and she's I don't know. What's a better word that's not unkind?
I actually think Katana is very different from her character in that she's actually very shy. I wish she could have come, but we couldn't get her passport
She's a
in
sweetheart.
time.
You guys would love her. Like she'll have you laughing. That's really, really flattering because, in the beginning, I actually hated that song. I really did. Like, I did not like it. I mean, it's like you're listening to it and it's like, toiling, little boy. Like, it's, I'm young. Yeah. So, I do have a lot of training in singing. And my lovely producer here, I love this man. He's so awesome. But my favorite singers are Tony and Tamar Braxton. And he actually got their vocal coach to come and coach me for the song. Yeah.
The cool thing about that, the choice of song was Sean. And I'm not sure where the list appeared, but one of his top 10 film lists appeared somewhere. One of his favorite films is the Laurel and Hardy Babes in Toyland, and we were struggling at the beginning to come up with a public domain song for Christmas, and I guess I called you and I said, like, what about Toyland? It was like at 3 o'clock in the morning it hit me. I'm like, what about Toyland? And it just seemed to work so well in that scene. Rather than the Toni Braxton Christmas album, but you know.
No, you tried it. No, because if I would have came out singing Santa Please, like, everybody in here would be masturbating because it sounds that good. Exactly.
Karan Karagulian has been in all of my films up to this point. I consider him just an amazing, underrated actor. I wanted to involve him in this, but I didn't know how, and I called him up and I said, I'm making a film in LA about 2 transgender sex workers. I'm not sure how to work you in. And he said, LA has a humongous Armenian population, number one, and number two, every other cab driver is an Armenian, so I think you can figure it out. And so I was like, oh, okay. And then we went and we wrote this parallel storyline, and things just really happened organically, where we suddenly, Arsen Gregorian, who plays the other cab driver in the film, he's actually a huge celebrity, maybe one of the biggest celebrity in the film. He hosts The Voice in Armenia, and he got wind that we were making this film, always wanted to be in an American independent, and flew himself to LA, and then brought the whole Armenian cast. And Ala Tamoyan is a classic star of stage and screen from her country. Luisa Narcisan, they're all celebrities. And it was really wonderful, to, because I like to mix first-timers and seasoned actors, and in this case, it was just really a great experience. And the same way that Mya and Kiki were almost consultants on the language, the same thing happened on the Armenian side. We wrote out the dialogue for them. Arsen and Karan took it and sort of reworded it and gave it an Armenian flavor, and then we looked at it, we all approved, and then it was translated to Armenian. So it was really a nice collaborative effort on that part as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about the other aspect of that. And Karan was fearful of doing the scene, not because he had any phobias, but because of how he would be perceived in Armenia. Because he said, if he went to Armenia, he would be killed for being in that scene. And it was interesting because we were talking to Arsen after we shot the film. He said that, in the in Armenia, Arsen would be considered the hero because he sold him out, which is a very interesting, situation. So, yeah.
Which is sad. You know what? I have something else to say. I just have to say this because it's just on my mind, and I had to mention it in a few interviews. I'm introduce you guys to this too. I feel like there's a lot of cisgender people who be like, well, trans people just want us to accept them and everything. I feel like it's not about acceptance. Like, why can't people just mind their business? Like, you know what I'm about to say, Sean? Like, didn't we talk about this earlier?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like what makes them think that they need to accept something? I don't care whether you accept it or whether you don't. I don't give a but
You
respect
said something.
it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, all people ask for is respect. Like, what makes people think that they have the right to just tell somebody what to do with their life? Or I'd be like this. Okay, so how is me being transgender paying your bills? Get your money up. That's what I have to say.
As a matter of fact, the fine folks at it's like you're a plant. The fine folks at Metrodome have picked up the film for distribution, and we are opening here on November 13th in how many theaters? 25 theaters. So.